In the shadows of the Bandiagra cliffs, where sandstone soars 2,000 feet into the sky, a legend is born. Not of stars, not of gods, but of how a man becomes a warrior and a woman becomes the prize. The Dogon tribe knows that marriage doesn't begin with love. It begins with theft. Here, in West African Mali, among 300,000 descendants of star visitors, a law as simple as stone prevails. If you want to marry, steal your bride. The land where the hunt begins. The Bandiagra Mountains are more than just a place on a map. They're a natural fortress where 700 villages cling to the cliffs like the nests of birds of prey. Here, in this stone citadel, isolated from the outside world for centuries, a unique social adaptation has formed, a system of marital relations built on ritual abduction. What made an entire people make theft the basis of family life? Anthropologists have been searching for the answer for decades. French researchers Marcel Griol and Germaine Dieterlen, who lived among the Dogon for 30 years, discovered a striking pattern. Every aspect of Dogon culture is subject to the principle of cosmic balance, even bride theft. In this world, where villages are built in the shape of a human body and each house symbolizes a part of universal harmony, the abduction of a woman becomes not a crime, but a sacred act of restoring order. Anatomy of a ritual abduction. Imagine a young man, 17 to 22 years old, standing on the edge of a cliff in the pre-dawn silence. His choice has been made. His family has conducted all the necessary negotiations, but tradition demands one thing. He must take his future wife by force. This isn't an impulsive decision by a desperate romantic. It's a carefully planned operation involving the entire kin group. First stage, selection and preparation. The choice of a bride in Dogon society is never left to chance. The groom's parents study genealogical connections, assess the social standing of the family, and calculate economic benefits. Marriages are strictly endogamous, allowed only within the clan and caste. But there's a nuance that outside observers don't understand. The girl's consent is known in advance. Ritual abduction among the Dogon isn't violence against a woman's will, but a theatrical reproduction of the ancient myth of the first marriage. Second stage, the moment of capture. On the appointed day, usually at dawn or dusk, when the spirits of the ancestors are most active, the groom and a group of friends and relatives go to the chosen girl's house. They wait for the moment when she goes out for water or heads to the fields. The capture happens quickly and demonstratively. The girl must scream, resist, and show that she's being taken against her will. This isn't hypocrisy. It's the fulfillment of a ritual script that connects the present with cosmogonic myths. A woman who doesn't resist violates tradition and may be rejected by the community as wrong. Third stage, journey to a new home. The abducted girl is taken to the groom's family compound where she's greeted by the women of the clan. Here begins a period of adaptation from a few days to a few weeks, during which the new relatives try to convince the girl to accept the marriage. If the girl continues to resist, refuses to eat, doesn't sit down, doesn't accept gifts, she may be released. A marriage without the bride's consent is considered unsuccessful and brings misfortune to the entire clan. Cosmic logic of earthly traditions. Why did a people with amazing knowledge of the Sirius star system and who created a complex mythology chose this particular form of marital relations? The answer lies in the Dogon concept of duality. According to their beliefs, all people were originally born as twins, perfect bisexual beings. But after a cosmic catastrophe caused by the rebellion of the jackal Yurugu, humanity lost its original harmony. Marriage through abduction symbolically reproduces this original loss. The man steals his other half from the cosmos, restoring the broken unity. The woman's ritual resistance represents the resistance of chaos to order, and her final consent represents the victory of harmony over destruction. Social architecture of survival. Living on steep cliffs where every scrap of fertile land is worth its weight in gold, and the climate can wipe out a harvest in a single night, the tribe couldn't afford romantic illusions. Economic calculation. Every marriage among the Dogon is an economic union of two families. Through the system of ritual abduction, the community gains the opportunity to control demographic processes, strengthen ties between kin groups, redistribute labor resources, maintain genetic diversity in an isolated population. Psychological adaptation. The abduction ritual performs an important psychological function for all participants. For the young man, it's an initiation, a transition to adulthood through overcoming obstacles. For the girl, it's a demonstration of her own value through the struggle for her. For the community as a whole, it's a confirmation of the viability of tradition and cohesion in the face of external threats. Women in a system of ritual counterweights. Western researchers often interpret Dogon marriage practices as oppression of women, but anthropological analysis shows a more complex picture. The power of resistance. In Dogon society, a woman has the right of final veto. Even after ritual abduction, she can refuse marriage at any stage, return to her parents' home, demand a divorce, although this is a complex process. Leave her husband before the birth of her first child without serious consequences. Economic role. Dogon women aren't just objects of exchange between families. They're active participants in economic life. They run the household, participate in trade, and control certain rituals related to fertility. A woman's status increases with the birth of children. The first wife, Yabiru, occupies a privileged position in the family hierarchy. Caste determines fate. Not all Dogon are equal before marriage traditions. Society is strictly divided into endogamous castes, each of which lives by its own rules. Noble farmers. The main population of the Dogon people are farmers, making up about 90% of the tribe. It is among them that the classic ritual kidnapping of brides is practiced. Their marriages are subject to strict genealogical rules. Unions between members of the same clan and second cousins are prohibited. Blacksmiths, keepers of the fire. The blacksmith caste, Irim, lives separately on the outskirts of villages. It's a paradox. They are materially poor but possess enormous ritual power. Blacksmiths can marry between second cousins, a privilege forbidden to others. Their wedding rituals differ from the generally accepted ones. Often, everything is limited to a theatrical performance. Leather workers, the trading elite. Leather workers, Dayam, occupy a special position, formally belonging to the lowest caste, but economically the most successful. They actively trade with neighboring tribes, accumulate wealth, and their daughters are considered good matches. The kidnapping ritual in their environment often turns into a complex economic operation, where the bride's parents may demand significant compensation. Modern challenges to ancient traditions. The 21st century has arrived in the Dogon country with tourist buses, cell phones, and new ideas about human rights. How does the ritual of bride kidnapping survive in the age of globalization? Transformation of tradition. Modern Dogon people are increasingly adapting the ritual to new realities. Young people who have been educated in cities are returning to villages with a changed worldview. Today, kidnapping often becomes an agreed-upon theatrical performance where all participants know the script in advance. The girl may resist to maintain appearances, but in fact, she goes to the groom voluntarily. Religious influence. The penetration of Islam and Christianity has significantly changed the marriage practices of the Dogon people. Muslim and Christian families are increasingly abandoning ritual kidnapping in favor of more conventional forms of marriage. However, there is no complete abandonment of tradition. Instead, hybrid forms arise. An official religious ceremony is complemented by elements of the ancient ritual. Economic changes. The development of tourism has brought new sources of income to the Dogon country. Many families no longer depend solely on agriculture. This weakens the economic motives of traditional marriages. Young women are getting more opportunities to earn their own money, which strengthens their position in marriage negotiations. Anthropological paradox. The study of the Dogon marriage traditions has posed a fundamental problem of interpretation for anthropologists. How to evaluate practices that seem archaic from the point of view of modern ethics, but perform important social functions within a traditional society. The trap of cultural relativism. Walter Van Beek, who conducted his own research on the Dogon people in the 1980s, found significant discrepancies with the classic works of Griot. His critical analysis showed that many traditional practices were romanticized or inaccurately interpreted by early researchers. This also applies to marriage rituals. Van Beek found that modern Dogon people perceive bride kidnapping more as a game than as a serious tradition. The influence of researchers on the researched. Paradoxically, scientific interest in Dogon traditions has contributed to their conservation. Tourists come to see authentic culture, and the Dogon people play the expected roles. The ritual of bride kidnapping becomes part of a tourist show, losing its true meaning. The global context of bride kidnapping. The Dogon people are not unique in their marriage practices. Ritual bride kidnapping has been recorded in many peoples around the world. Central Asian parallels. In Kyrgyzstan, the practice of ala kachu, kidnapping a girl, still persists. As with the Dogon people, this is often an agreed-upon action aimed at overcoming social or economic obstacles to marriage. Common patterns. Anthropological analysis shows that bride kidnapping is characteristic of societies with certain characteristics. A patriarchal structure with strong family ties. Endogamous marriage rules. Economic barriers to normal marriages. Ritualized attitude to transitional states. The evolution of social adaptations. The history of Dogon marriage traditions shows how human communities develop unique solutions to universal problems. Functions of the ritual. Ritual bride kidnapping among the Dogon people performs multiple social functions. Demographic regulation, controlling birth and death rates through marriage management. Economic integration, creating alliances between families for joint survival. Psychological adaptation, ritualizing stress associated with changing social status. Cultural transmission, transferring values and norms through participation in traditional practices. Social integration, strengthening group identity through common rituals. Adaptive value. From an evolutionary point of view, the marriage traditions of the Dogon people represent a successful adaptation to the harsh environmental conditions. They provided survival of the population in an isolated and resource-limited environment, maintaining genetic diversity through controlled interclan marriages, efficient use of resources through economic alliances of families, social stability through the ritualization of potentially conflicting situations, modern dilemmas and the future of tradition. Today, Dogon communities face a difficult choice: preserve the authenticity of traditions or adapt to global human rights standards. The voices of the Dogon themselves. The younger generation of Dogon people has mixed feelings about traditional marriage practices. Young men and women educated in cities often criticize the kidnapping ritual as an archaism. However, many recognize the symbolic value of tradition and are willing to participate in its modernized versions. A woman's perspective. Dogon women are increasingly voicing their opinions about marriage traditions. Many are demanding a greater role in choosing their life partners, but not necessarily a complete abandonment of ritualistic practices. Compromise options include a symbolic kidnapping with the prior consent of all parties involved. Lessons for understanding human nature. Studying Dogon marriage traditions provides a unique opportunity to understand the mechanisms of cultural evolution. Universality and variability. The need to create family unions is universal to humankind, but the ways in which it's realized demonstrate amazing diversity. The Dogon experience shows that even seemingly archaic practices can perform important adaptive functions. The dynamics of change. Traditions aren't frozen forms. They're constantly evolving, adapting to changing conditions. The modern transformation of Dogon marriage rituals demonstrates the ability of traditional societies to organically modernize without completely losing their cultural identity. In the Bandiagara Cliffs, the ancient songs telling the story of Nomo's first marriage still echo. Young Dogon still reach for the stars, believing in their cosmic mission. And somewhere between myth and reality, between tradition and modernity, the great experiment of human adaptation continues. The bride kidnapping ritual is just one facet of this experiment. It's a unique social adaptation that helps us understand how human communities solve the eternal problems of survival, procreation, and maintaining social harmony in the face of limited resources and an isolated environment.